How's it going, folks? Eric Sapp here, and today we're going to be going on a POV drive with my 2024 Toyota Grand Highlander. If you're on the market for a 2025, it's going to look the exact same as this, unless you opt in for the Limited or the Platinum. You might have some different leather interior options, or maybe some cooled seats or a moonroof. That's about it. Everything else will be the same. But this right here, you can see, is the money shot. This is why the Grand Highlander is so popular. It is so long, 6 inches longer, 2.5 inches taller, and 3 inches wider than a typical Highlander. Lots of space. That's why you want one of these things, and a big girthy rear end, which is exactly what we want and is what all of us purchasers of this thing up to this point enjoyed the most. Got plenty of space, up to 100 square foot of space between the second and the third row when you put the second row down. It's wild. That said, guys, let's just hop right into this thing and just go for a rip. All right, folks, and here we are on our onboard drive. So let's just start out by hitting this thing on that road. So you're gonna notice first when you get into the Grand Highlander is it's just really spacious, comfortable, and everything is where you want it to be. You got your manual buttons here in just underneath this 12.3 inch display screen. You've got your gear selector right here, very firm, solid gear selector, perfect placement, and it's just incredible. You got your drive mode selections over here, just in front of the storage compartment here, and everything is laid out really nicely. Now, as we hit the road here, you're gonna see that basically the best mode that you're gonna go in for a fuel economy kind of perspective is eco mode. Now, when you're in eco mode, the revs are going to rev out much slower. The rev changes actually happen around 2,500 RPM, just over that. And if you go into sport mode, your revs are gonna switch between 35, just closer to 4,000 RPMs. So it's a little bit different here. So we're gonna leave this thing in eco mode quick, and we are going to just kind of test a little bit of an acceleration there, just a moderate acceleration. So you can see there, we're in eco mode. We're in just almost 3,000 RPMs and our gears have changed, and it's going to try and keep the revs much lower. Do a little gear change here, and gear change, and it's nice. Nice smooth ride, very comfortable. It's definitely not like an air ride comfortable, but it's amazing for what it is, honestly. This thing can soak up the bumps really well. Drives just like a Corolla, you know? Really nice, smooth, buttery steering wheel. You don't have any understeer. It's just very direct. Just a slight steering kind of movement will get you where you want to go. Very good in that sense. Now, if we throw this thing in sport mode here, then let's get a taste of what that's like. So as soon as we put it into sport mode, you can see the gear change actually just, it starts to hold out the revs a lot longer. It's going to want to rev definitely a lot higher to hold those RPMs longer to get you more acceleration and more speed. So as we're driving here, you can see we have a yellow light coming up. We're going to come to a stop, and then we'll do a little moderate acceleration there to show you guys how she, how she revs out. Nice little feature to have, but all cars come with manual mode anyway, so it is what it is. And if you don't want to shift down to 1, it'll shift for you as you stop if you are in that manual mode. So that's kind of a cool feature to have. Now, another really good feature about this thing that I think is one of the craziest things that's really amazing is actually the adaptive cruise control. So the adaptive cruise control, you actually have settings over here. So this button over here, you can control the amount of car lengths, between 1 and 4 car lengths ahead of you. And basically, if you set your adaptive cruise control by clicking this button here, it's waiting, you're gonna move, and as you move, it'll lock to the speed of the car in front of you. And if the car slows down, then it will not go off of your cruise control speed. It will match the car in front of you speed, and as they move, then it will actually move you out of the way, and it'll make it so that you match that speed, and once they move, then it'll take you back to your original cruise control speed. So we're going up here. Let's set our cruise control. Right now we're at 79. All right, if this guy goes slower, it'll automatically brake for us, as it did right there. So this car actually was just braking for us. And this is the cool thing about this adaptive cruise control, is that if you are on the highway, you can actually drive this thing, hundreds of kilometers, hundreds of miles, 1,000 miles without actually stopping, and to stop and press the brake, which is crazy. Right now we're set to 4 car lengths ahead, so it's matched to that guy ahead of me's speed, even though our cruise control is actually set to 82. Now, if we lower the amount of car in front of us distance, we can lower that down. As we lower it down, the car will start to speed up a little. We lower it down again, it'll start to speed up a little to minimize that space until we get too close, which right now we have a 1 car length set, which is the minimum space. then it'll match that car at 72, 71, kilometers an hour, stuff like that. So it's really cool. And as we switch lanes and we come out here, you're going to see that it actually goes up to speed now. And now it'll go back to that speed that we have set for our cruise control. That said, we're going to lower that a bit there, and there we go. So we're set there, and really nice feature. This adaptive cruise control makes it so that you really don't have to press the brakes, which is pretty wild. That said, you don't want to get too comfortable with this aspect of the car, because I've been on the highway, it can get really comfortable, and just God forbid that doesn't actually work one time. That would be horrible, and that would be really tragic. But it's nice to know, even when you just press the brakes on your own, these little red lights come up here. That symbolizes that you are pressing the brakes. You put your foot off and they go away. So now onto the satellite navigation screen. So you can see here, Experience Drive Connect. Drive Connect is basically the Siri of Toyota. It can control your navigation. It can control different aspects of the car. It can control your wireless start, your remote start in the winter. If you have an XLE model. Now, if you get the limited or the platinum model, you can actually get that on your fob. But if you have the XLE, it's not going to come on the fob. You're going to have Drive Connect. That's going to come with a $9 to $12 a month and monthly fee for the subscription. That said, obviously, it's different when you do subscriptions. You're not going to want to use those maps potentially long term, because they could become outdated, which is kind of a tragedy, obviously. But that's why, for the most part, you're going to use that Apple CarPlay and that Android Auto. No biggie. So we go over here. Right now it's just taking us into our CarPlay. We're going to go back to Toyota. You go to your settings. You can see different things. You can control your climate control. You can control your trip information, what your fuel economy is, stuff of that nature. And you can also control your audio, yada, yada, yada. It is what it is. And it's just a nice, big, intuitive screen. And it's laid out really well. One thing I will note is that when you use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with this car, is it works amazing. You can program a ton of phones on here and switch between them on the fly seamlessly if they're already programmed. So I can switch between mine and my wife's phone very easily just by clicking the button inside the settings, and it's just amazing. Whereas stuff like, for example, my Ford F-150 2023, that thing is really tragic when it comes to connecting. Like, it'll connect me, and then it will, like, one time, and then I'll go to start it up another 2 times, and it'll take forever to connect, or I'll have to plug in the wire. And then a lot of the time I'll actually have to reset the system in my Ford, my F-150 2023. This, never. It's connected once, it's always been connected, and it works perfect every single time, which is wild. Another thing you're going to note here is that the wipers, if you actually go to pull them up, they won't actually come up outside. If you want to knock off some ice, you're going to have to actually heat those wipers up to be able to get the ice off. So that over here is where this button comes in. This right here is your heated wiper button. If you come out in the winter and you turn on the car and you click this heated wiper button, within 1 to 3 minutes, those wipers and the windshield around the wiper area will be completely thawed, and it'll be perfect and good to go. And that is because you can't actually knock the ice off of those without putting it in service mode and raising up the wipers. And I think they did that because obviously you don't want to be banging things against glass. Potentially the glass is getting thinner, and also pulling them up when they're frozen and smacking them on the windshield can also be really bad for your wipers. You can rip those wipers apart. This will preserve the life of your wipers, and it's a really effective button to have, and it's a great feature of this Grand Highlander. Now, in regards to braking, this thing has a really good braking. I'm not sure quite of the distance, but it basically is just like a car. It's got really, really powerful brakes at all speeds. Even if you're going fast, this thing's got powerful brakes. It's got good get up and go. One thing I will say is the main competitor of this is basically like the Honda Pilot, despite that one as being, quite a bit smaller in the third row. This is definitely a direct competitor of the Pilot, which still uses a 3.5 liter V6 engine. But I'll tell you, with this car having the 2.4 liter turbocharged engine, when you really actually lay into this thing, it can be quite loud of an engine, because you can tell this little tiny 4-banger 2.4T engine is working really, really hard to get this big beast moving, which is definitely something to take into account when you buy one of these things. It is one of the first generation turbocharged engines that's in the Grand Highlander. They don't come with naturally aspirated engine, other than the non-turbo hybrid engine that you can get with the basically across all models. But that said, this is definitely a small engine working very hard to move this big vehicle. That's something to take into account. If you want to have a natural aspiration style engine, then that might be something that you might want to look into before you purchase this. All right, folks, now that we're at the end of our onboard drive, let's go around the Grand Highlander and just show you a bit of what it's like. So let's just start at the front and work to the back. So over here in the front here, you have the XLE. You're gonna have a manual hood latch you're gonna have to put up here. But in the XLE, you can get two different powertrain options. You can get the 2.4 liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine with 265 horse and 310 pound-foot of torque. You can also grab a 2.5 liter non-turbo hybrid engine with this XLE, as well as the Limited. That is going to be the best option when it comes to fuel economy. You're talking 32 miles to the gallon in the city and 35, 36 in the highway. It's amazing on fuel economy. And then if you want the most snazzy, the craziest, most technological, and has the most different tweaking options on the interior and exterior, you're gonna go for that Platinum Hybrid Max. It's gonna have the most power, you have the most customizability, and you're gonna have the most, powerful option and most sleek car. Now, let's put this hood down. Let's check out the front seats. So, over here in the front row, obviously, as you've seen from the onboard drive, very well equipped. We got 3 USB-Cs in the front here. We have heated seats in the front. You got a heated steering wheel. You have pretty much everything you would want aside cooled seats. You also have a wireless phone charger there in the middle. Works great. You got your drive mode selections here. One thing to note about these drive modes is that when you're driving, if your arm's here, you can actually click the drive modes while you're driving and change it around, which is kind of too bad. It would be nice if this was kind of incorporated in a different location, like maybe down here or somewhere over here, but it is okay. It's just something to be mindful of. You got lots of space down here. You can put your whole arm down in there, practically back to your elbow. And then if you go into the back seat here, you've got another 2 USB-Cs here. You got 2 USB-Cs in the third row as well. You got plenty of space here. One thing to note, if you do have the swivel car seat and you have, a child of that age, it is going to work. But if you're someone that likes to stay a good distance away from the steering wheel, either the driver or the passenger, if you go to turn it this way, it very, very slightly hits here. It's gonna barely make it, but it will make it. That's just something to keep in mind. Another great feature of this is just that you have the manual sunshades here. It's really handy to have. It's amazing, actually. You got 11 cup holders in this thing. You get 3 in the front. You've got 2 in the second row here in the middle, and you also have 6 in the third row over there. Now, I'll show you the third row. You got to excuse all of the mess I have back here because I have a ton of stuff in here just because this is our, daily family vehicle and all that stuff. So this thing is crazy. So this right here is your cup holders. When you have the third row up, you get 3 cup holders and an iPad slot there, which is crazy. It's really wild. And we got that on both sides. You also got your USB-Cs right over here. Really nice location. And when you're using that third row, it's really easy to get into. You got about a foot of space to actually hop back in there, and you got about 30 inches of leg room roughly around there. At least that's what the EPA says, and I can vouch that is definitely true. If you put the second row seats down, you have almost 100 square feet. It's something like 96 or 97.5 square feet of space, which is wild if you put that second row down. It's crazy. You can literally camp out in this thing. And in a separate video, actually a short, I actually went out and bought a snowblower from Costco, a big massive snowblower, and the entire thing fit in here. The rear seats were good, the swivel car seat still worked, and we could still put more stuff in the sides, which is mind-blowing. I'll put a link to that in the description if you ever wanted to see that. It's really actually cool to see. Now, when you're closing this thing up, if it's not running and you're in the grocery store, you want to run back in, you can just simply click this button over here that will close it and lock it. For now, we're just going to click that, and that's that. And there she is, nice power tailgate. The power tailgate, the leather seats, all come standard with the XLE Grand Highlander. So definitely comes well equipped automatically from the factory. That's what you would expect when you get this Grand Highlander. So that said, guys, that concludes this video. And if you're a subscriber of the channel, drop down in the comments what you want to see and give me some input because I'm really eager to hear. And I think that concludes it, you guys. So if you enjoyed this video, like, sub, that would be so cool. And have yourself a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.